didn't do anything this morning. Boy, I'm out of a hot place right now. This is on a point on the creek. You can see the creek going around. Makes a point back in there. And it comes back right in here. They got some pin oaks and a red oak on this point right here. And they're burning it up. They're crossing the creek, coming in right there on that side of the point. They're crossing and coming in right here. They got the banks all tore up, sand just all busted up everywhere. All that down there sandbars tracked up, unbelievable. But they pouring in right here. Pouring in right there. Got a pin oak tree right there. I got a red oak tree right here. And back behind me, got a honey locust bean tree. They got a lot of sign. Only thing I'm concerned with, the woods are kind of open. They're really open. And if I get any action, it'll probably be right at dark. Now on the other side of the creek, that's where the deer coming from. It's really thick over there. So they might pop out. We just have to wait and see. Play it by ear. And see what happens. I tell you what, I am glad to see this deer. I have no idea at all how far this son gun went. I mean, he covered some ground. I shot him yesterday evening, and he ran forever and ever and ever. I trailed blood for a ways. But I'm gonna set up, and I'm gonna show you the deer a little bit and just tell you something that what happened. It is unbelievable. You ain't gonna believe it. He's a little stiff, but you can see what it looks like. I'm gonna show you something. That's where I shot him, right there. Right here. They're not as big as you think they are when you get them like this. Yesterday morning, I made a hunt on a persimmon tree that I killed a spike on last week. I didn't see anything, no deer that is, but I had a bobcat came in, and I let him get in. I think it was about 15 yards, and I kind of bladed at him and stopped him. He was walking pretty good, and when he stopped, I went ahead and took a quick shot at him. I thought I shot low on him, but he started scrambling real bad, got to fighting that air, and he tore on out of it. I mean, he was really hauling it. And run straight to a briar patch, and I went ahead and got in, and after another hour hunting, and went over and looked at my air, and I had a little blood on it, and so I started trailing him. I picked up some blood about 30 yards out, and I trailed him up in that briar patch around, and finally he just quit. I just cut him, I guess. Well, I made a big walk after I was down, and I started coming out, and I got probably a third of the way out back to the truck. And I got to notice the big pin oak tree was just raining acres. The woods were real open, but it had a lot of deer sign under it, and I wanted to see what was associated with it and where they was coming from. So I started walking back to the creek, and I got on the creek, and it was just unbelievable. The sign crossing the creek in there. I mean, they were tearing it up coming in that creek. Well, I spent probably an hour looking for what I thought was the best place, and I was still concerned about the woods being so open and maybe they wouldn't come in until after dark. So I went ahead and hunted it anyway, and I set up on it, and sure enough, I mean right at dark, I saw him down on the creek. He come out of the woods on the opposite side and came down in the creek, and they had a real sandy place where it was coming up on the bank. And that's where I was looking for him to come up. And I never did see him, but I heard him, and all of a sudden, I heard him walking, and it was really, really dark. And then all of a sudden, he was under me. And I never did stand up because I took for granted when he come across, he was gonna come in on those oak trees that I was set up on, and he didn't. They had a honey locust bean tree in behind me, and he was headed straight for it. And it put him passing about 10 yards right directly behind me. Well, I didn't stand up, and time I saw him, he was right under me. So when he got behind me, I went ahead and stood up and turned around, and I I had my safety belt hooked up, and it's short rope, and I couldn't turn all the way because it was tightened up on me. Finally, I just pulled and spun my belt around a little bit and got in a position where I could shoot. And like I said, it's real dark. I had my lighted sight pin on. It was glowing good, and I just pulled up and aimed, and I let him walk into the pen. When he got into it, I went ahead and shot. And it sounded like I hit him. I wasn't sure. And he tore out, made a circle around, and went back to the creek. And I heard him hit in the creek, make a lot of noise when he jumped in the creek and went across. So I got on down, and I guess it was 10 minutes till 6 when I started on the blood trail. I had blood immediately. I mean, at the shot, they had blood on the ground. And it was just about every step you took, you saw blood. It was a little thin at first, and then it started picking up. By the time he crossed the creek, it was just a walk. I mean, every step I took, it was blood. And I started on the blood trail at about 10 minutes to 6, and at 8:30, I jumped it. Now that's 10 minutes to 6, 8:30. That's a lot of blood trail, and I ain't lying. And I mean, it was just blood every step. But this son gun here punished me. I ain't lying. He put it on me. He took me through every thicket and every briar patch in this whole part of the country. I have no idea how far he went, but I would say easy 1.5 miles. I mean, without a doubt, 1.5 miles minimum. And I probably had 200 yards crawling time. And just, I mean, in the stuff that you couldn't stand up in. You couldn't bend over and walk. You had to get down and crawl, and sometimes you had to belly crawl. My knees on my pants were all bloody from crawling in the blood trail. But I stayed with it, and Lloyd, he came up. He was on the other side of the creek waiting for me, and every once in a while he'd owl to me, kind of keep my bearings. I had no idea where I was at. I knew which way the creek was, and I could hear the highway over there. And he would just round and round. He'd go north, he'd go south, he'd go east, he'd go west. He was just going from thicket to thicket and briar patch to briar patch. He was avoiding open woods. And finally he come on down, and 3 different times I almost lost the blood trail. And each time I found it, I wished I hadn't found it because of the places he was taking me. But he kept going and kept going, and finally I broke down into a place, and it got a little thin, and I picked back up on it, and he made a little cut, and where he made the cut, it was a lot of little saplings in there. And I got to looking, and I saw him laying down with his head up in there, and he was about 15 steps. And I got an arrow out, put it on the string. I got everything ready to shoot, but I couldn't shoot where I was standing. It was too thick. I had to take a step up. And when I took a step up, he come up out of there and started running. I mean, he poured it on. And I had a bearing at which way he went. And I went over to where he was at, and I couldn't find any blood. And I mean, it was a thicket. It was one of those bust-through thickets. And so I started going in the direction he went, and went about 50 yards and picked up on some blood again. And I started working that blood. And like I say, it was 8:30 when I jumped him. And I went probably 70 yards on that blood, and I heard him get up again. And when he got up that again, I had just owled at Lloyd, and I knew I was pretty close to the creek. So I said, well, I got to leave him alone. I said, he's trying to die. He's done bled this much. He can't keep going. So I went ahead and marked with some toilet paper where the last blood was, and I took a bearing to where I knew the creek was. And I hung toilet paper all the way to the creek. And once I got to the creek, I went on over to Lloyd, and he was at a log I could cross, and I crossed the log, and got back on the other side and then marked that. And I told Lloyd, I said, he's got to die. He's done bled too much. I said, I don't know where I hit him, but wherever it is, no matter where it is, that much blood, he's got to get down weak. And it was really cool last night, so we figured that if he got up and only went about 50 to about 80 yards and then got up again, he wasn't going much further. He was getting weak, and with the coolness of the night, if he laid down, he'd probably get hypothermia and go ahead and die. So I come back in here this morning and hunted a tree for about an hour and got down and walked over and followed my toilet paper into my last blood, and then picked up a long little blood and went about maybe 30 yards, and I saw him laying up in the bushes. And man, I'm glad to see this son done. He tortured me last night. I didn't get
I didn't get out of the woods at 9:15. I got back to my camping area about 9:35. And time I fixed something to eat and climbed up in the sleeping bag, it was 10:15. And I got up early this morning. But I don't like to lose no deer. And any deer that bleeds that much, I got to find it. And it was just a real late shot, and I just fired down there where he's at, and I paid for it. But I won. Let me show you where I hit it. Now, he was kind of angling away from me a little bit, and this air went through here and cut all this in here, slashed it open and went down and cut that. And I guess I got some veins or something on him that just wouldn't quit bleeding, and he just kept moving, and it kept it bleeding and never would clot up, and finally just died. That air just come in here and just ripped him all like that and went down and ripped that, and just running down his legs, and it was just steady blood every step he took. He's kind of still. He's been laying up all night, but ain't nothing wrong with him. He's pretty deer. He got real good black color and all down his back. He's just a little old young buck. And I'm glad to have him. This is my 190th bow kill right here. Number 190. And boy, I tell you what, this is the longest, hardest blood trail I have ever done on all the deer I've ever killed. And I am glad to get it.